The workbench is one of the most important tools in the shop, and as we've worked on upgrading our shop here on the Artisan Vlog, one of the most important things we've done is we've added a workbench that suits my specific needs. This bench is a feature in a video on my primary channel, An American Artisan, where I show all the details of how I made the bench and mounting devices and everything like that. In a previous post on the vlog, I went over the vices and the hardware and what I liked about it, and now it's time for me to apply a coat of finish to my bench. When you're putting finish on tools or benches, you want a finish that can be revived. You want a finish that, as it gets dinged up and builds a patina from use, can be reapplied to add strength and durability to the work surface. A lot of artisans that I know will use a tung oil based finish for their benches and tools. You can see here on my mallet I have a tung oil finish that I've been able to reapply periodically. I probably do it, I use this a lot, so I probably do it about every 6 months or so. And it's really built up a nice patina. It makes it nice and shiny, and all the dents and dings from using the mallet just get blended in and become part of the patina of the piece, and that's what I want to happen here on my bench. I've also done the same thing here on my tool tote, which I probably reapply that annually, and it really still has a nice patina, sort of a dent patina. There's a certain way to think of it. When you look at this and you see the dents and the dings, but it's still a luster on them, it really makes the piece shine, and it shows that it's something that's used. It's not put up on a pedestal. So there's a few things to know about a tung oil finish. So this is some tung oils, Wood River brand tung oil that I picked up at Woodcraft. Any pure tung oil will do. You'll notice that the bottle is sort of squeezed. That's because as you use the tung oil, you're going to want to evacuate any excess air out of the container. So what I've essentially done is, you can see here, if I flatten this out, it comes down to here. I've used about almost a fifth of the product. And if I let that air stay in there, what'll happen is I'll get a cap of dried, unusable tung oil that has sort to solidify as it reacts to the oxygen and the little bit of air that's in there. So to prevent that from happening, what I'm going to do is squeeze it all the way up to the top where it's almost popping out. You can see that's, well, I hope you can see that's almost going to run over, and then I will apply my cap. As the content gets lower and lower and lower, I might need to transfer this to another container to be able to get all of the air out. So that's one thing to keep in mind with tung oil. Another thing is you don't want to just apply direct tung oil at first. You want to apply for probably your first 3 coats. You're going to want to thin the tung oil out with pure spirits of gum turpentine. And you're going to want to do about 2 equal parts. Once you've built up about 3 coats with that, then you can start to build up, if you want, you can thin it up with just a little bit less turpentine and work your way up, or you can start to apply the pure tung oil. So since we're talking about tung oil finishes and they need to be thinned with turpentine, I want to take a minute to explain what I mean by pure spirits of gum turpentine, because it can get a little confusing if you just go to the hardware store to go pick some up. You want to get the product that says pure spirits of gum turpentine or pure gum turpentine. Anything that just says turpentine or terpenoid is likely to be bleached or diluted with some other chemicals that can affect the tung oil over the years and cause it to darken and be a lot more photoreactive and almost get blotchy with time. By using pure gum turpentine, it's a natural product. It's going to work well with the tung oil, and it won't give you uneven consistency or make it especially photoreactive. But even within products labeled pure gum turpentine, there are some variations, and I'm going to kind of go over that here. This might be a little comical, it might look like a wine tasting, but I want to get a point across. Here I have turpentine that is labeled as pure gum, and it's purchased from a hardware chain. I blocked the name off. It's not my favorite, and I don't like to give negative reviews. I'd rather just tell you which ones to go to rather than than say something negative about a company. So I've covered it over. But the point I want to make is I'll pour this out, and one difference between your terpenoid and your chemically bleached turpentine is when you pour it out, it's going to be very light in color. It's going to be pretty much clear. And I will give credit to this product that when I pour it out, it does have a little bit of an amber hue. That looks like about enough. And here I have another brand, and I do recommend this brand. It's one of the brands I recommend. This is Sunnyside. It's one I can get here locally in Massachusetts. And this product is labeled as Pure Gum Spirits of Turpentine. And when I pour this out, it does not look as amber. But there is something else going on here. Unfortunately, you can't perceive on the camera, and I'm going to describe so you can imagine here. When I take my Sunnyside brand Pure Gum Spirits of Turpentine and I smell it, it smells like a pine tree. It smells like you've just cut the stump off your Christmas tree. And when you actually smell that sap, that is the aroma that's coming from the pure turpentine here. It's a pleasant aroma, and it shows that it is what it says it is. It is the pure product. When I smelled this product from the chain hardware store, it actually smells like stale pine sol. And that shows that there is some of that pine product in there that's not totally untrue what they're saying, but just like what I want you to avoid in those terpenoid products, in the products just laid turpentine, what I want you to avoid in those terpenoid synthetic style products and the products labeled just as turpentine, not pure spirits, there is some sort of bleaching agent, a chemical agent. They've thinned it out with something else. And I don't want that in my finished product. So this probably has some good uses. You can use it to clean your brushes. You can use it for a lot of things like that. But let's not put this in our finish, because I'm concerned that it will cause some of those issues that I discussed before, and I don't want that in my finished bench, especially where I put so much work into it. So we're going to set this aside. So I will be using the Sunnyside brand. This isn't the only brand. Another brand that I actually like even better than this, but wasn't able to get my hands on in time for the shoot, one that I used all the time as an oil painter, was Oriole brand Pure Spirits of Gum Turpentine. It's actually the nicest turpentine that I've ever used. It has more of an amber color than this, and the aroma from it is just absolutely fantastic. Talk about things being light sensitive, and you don't want them to darken with age. Paintings that I did, over 15 years ago still look nice and bright and clean, having used the Oriole brand Pure Spirits of Gum Turpentine. So now that I have my turpentine laid out, I'm going to set this aside. Actually, let's go back. If you're desperate, you really want a good product, you can't find it, you can get the artist grade Pure Gum Turpentine. You're going to pay way too much for it. But if it's the only thing you can find, this small project, it might be worth the investment. If anything, it tends to have an even stronger aroma because it will have more of those resins in it. But again, this small can probably cost as much as this big one. So just selecting the right brand will go far and save you some money. Now that I have my turpentine measured out, I am going to put in approximately equal part of tung oil into that and mix it up, and that's what I'll be using on my bench. Again, it's approximate. That looks pretty good. I'm going to want to squeeze all that air out again, and this actually might be, I think I've almost used enough that I need to transfer it to a smaller container. Yeah, that doesn't quite make it to the top, so that's a little chore I have to do later. And with that mixed, you'll see that it mixes in pretty easily, and this is going to be a very thin mixture. We want this to penetrate into the fibers with just a little bit of that resin from the tung oil to sort of crystallize and harden. I will do 3 coats of this. And after 3 coats, then I will start to apply just the pure tung oil. I have a little bit of sanding left to do, and then I'll get a coat on the top. After I have a coat on the top, I'm going to put this on horses. I get all the legs underneath, and then I'll check in with you after I have the first coat all the way done. All right, I've got my final sanding done, and now I'm ready to start applying the first coats of my tung oil finish. You'll notice I have it in a container with a cover to keep it from evaporating when I'm not using it. This is a type of plastic that will not dissolve with the turpentine. Be aware that some types of plastic will. I'm doing this in a well-ventilated area. I'm going to put some gloves on because you absorb more of this stuff through the skin than you really think. So just to be safe. These are the purple nitrile gloves. They do not soften up with the turpentine. So I'm going to apply my finish to my top, and I'm going to do the top edge here. Once I have that applied, just to make it easier, I'm going to raise it up and put it on horses, and that'll let me get underneath and get the trestle base, and then it'll dry, and I'll be able to do a second coat. So I'm just rag applying this. That's mixed nicely. I do the rag because I don't want to put too much. I want to put a thin coat that'll penetrate. So here we go. Let's see how that brings out the beauty of my bamboo top. One of the things with the bench that you want is a nice flat work surface. And on a traditional cabinet maker's bench, a lot of care is taken to control the expansion of the wood. Often it's sawn and put on edge so that the quarter sawn side is up, and often they'll put some trusses through the center, some long threaded rod, so that they can tighten it, and that also helps control the expansion. I have not done any of that here. I want to make a simpler bench that would be more approachable for others to build, and one of the ways I did that was to use a manufactured product. So here I have bamboo plywood. You hear a lot of guys at different shops affectionately call it plyboo. It is 12 times harder than red oak. It has been compressed and treated with some chemicals and all that to make it super hard and for it to stay super flat. It's very pleasant to work with. It may be difficult for you to get your hands on. If you were going to try to make this bench, you could instead purchase a pre-glued up birch or maple bench top. They have them at Woodcraft, and those have been put with the quarter sawn side up to minimize expansion, just like on a traditional bench. Underneath this bench, you'll see in the video featured on my primary channel and American Artisan that I've essentially piled up a whole bunch of scrap plywood. That does two things. It adds a ton of weight to it, which helps keep the bench stable, and also it makes it so that when I put my bench dog into the dog hole, that the dog is supported for the full length. And that it's not just a little bit of 3/4 holding on. That keeps the dogs from pivoting back as pressure is applied with the vise. So let's see, now I have the top coated, and I'm going to move on to the sides. One of the nice things about this bamboo plywood is how the laminations show on the edge. Normal plywood, you don't like to see the laminations, but this bamboo plywood is, it looks really nice. You can see the end grain of one layer and the plain sawn edge of another. I'm going to go through, and it might drip a little. As long as you get to it before it dries, it's not a big deal. And now we can see the sides of that red oak really pop. You can see there's a little bit of figure in this red oak. These legs are made entirely of solid red oak, but it's not solid all the way through. I've used a technique called miter folding. It's one of the more popular videos on my primary channel in American Artisan, and I was able to make these 3 3/4 thick legs out of 1-inch stick stock. You could feasibly make this bench all out of stock that you purchase at a home improvement store. Getting the jaws of the vise here. They're going to take a lot of abuse over the years, so let's give them a good coat of finish. Continuing over here. I really like the way this red oak contrasts very subtly with the bamboo plywood, and also on my, maybe out of frame here, but on the tail on my tail vise here, I've used hard maple. Some people call it rock maple, and I also like the subtle contrast between that and the bamboo. It's nice to see the different woods used, each used for a different purpose. And all the beauty of the wood comes out once we start applying this nice tung oil finish. I tell you, you can smell that Pure Spirits of Gum Turpentine. It smells like Christmas in here. It's really, really nice. Yeah, look at that figure. You don't see those stripes? All right, so I have my first coat applied on the top of the bench. I'm going to lift it up, finish off getting the rest of my first coat on the bottom. Oh, why did I make this thing so heavy? All right, so this bench is heavy. I couldn't lift it at all with the top inserted, that bamboo plywood top with the buildup of scrap plywood underneath. With that in there, I just could not lift it at all. So I actually took it out and set it aside, and that's actually not a bad thing, because that will allow me to get a coat of finish on this top edge and on the inside as well, and maybe for good measure I might put some on the plywood underneath. That'll help that will help stop things from absorbing moisture unevenly over the years. But with it up here, I'm going to go ahead and continue to apply my Pure Spirits of Gum Turpentine and tung oil mixture, and we'll see exactly how nice this bench is going to look when it's done. I like to start at the top and work down so that if it drips, I can just sort of spread that drip out. Start at the inside corners and then spread out from there. And that is looking really, really nice. Inside corner. I'm just sort of realizing right now that in certain circumstances I'm reaching over my head with a dripping rag with turpentine and tung oil in it. Really, as a safety precaution, when I'm doing that, I should be wearing safety glasses. You don't want to get this stuff in your eye. So, should have done it earlier, but better a little late than too late. All right, so I have one coat over the entire base of the bench, and now I will let that absorb, and in a few minutes I will take a clean rag and wipe off any excess that hasn't absorbed. One thing you might find every now and then, you might find in a corner or sort of an inside corner, you might find some glue that didn't get removed. It'll appear lighter, it'll almost look like it's not absorbing the finish. If you find that, you can do one of two things. You can let it fully dry, sand that whole area down, and reapply. Or while it's still wet, you can take a piece of sandpaper, preferably a cloth back sandpaper, and start to sand that away. And what it'll do is sort of burn in the finish. It'll remove the majority of the glue and gets the finish underneath. It'll break the seal on top and allow that finish to penetrate, and then you won't have that light halo. It happens every now and then, and it's nice to use that burn-in technique because you really don't lose any time. It might take you a few minutes to get it where it soaks it all up, but you won't be adding a whole nother coat to the process. So I'm going to let this dry, I'm going to wipe it down, and then continue my process. I'll add 3 coats of this, and then I'll probably add 2 to 3 coats of straight or very slightly thinned tung oil. And once that's done, I will recoat it annually with tung oil. Thanks for watching this vlog post. Subscribe for more. Actually, wait, before I go, I gotta remind you, and I'll put a link to in the description below for a video we did on this. We've rag applied our oil-based product, and whenever we need to do that, we need to lay it out flat to dry, say over the side of a metal trash can, preferably outside. What we don't want to do is crumple this up and throw it into the trash. It could cause a fire. All right, I'm really leaving now. Thanks.